We're going to begin this day with the conversation about SDGs and service learning. In this table, we have Jorge Srur, South Regional Manager from CAF in Latin America Development Bank, Vannina Trentin from IIPE, UNESCO, Jimi Caldea from La Salle University, Philippines, Manuel Caire from the Chilean Catholic University. As a moderator, we are going to have Enrique Ochoa, Executive Director of CLAYSS. We hear now from the moderator to introduce the panel members. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Jorge Srur is not here with us. Last minute yesterday, he told us he couldn't be here because of his work at CAF. He sends his regards, so we will have a bit more time for the other panel members. They know this as from yesterday, and for the idea of the conversation after the presentations we're going to have. We're going to have some time then for Q&A and questions from the audience. First of all, totally out of context, let me tell you that as from CLAYSS, it is always joyful for us to have this seminar as a reference point. Many of you have been here other years, some others are here for the first or second time. We want to highlight the effort of everyone involved, the whole team behind all this, and Jorge, our president, was thanking also the donors, because this is a free of charge seminar. We have a bag of materials with a beautiful book with 20 stories of education and solidarity. This was completed last year, at the beginning of this year, because of the 20th CLAYSS anniversary last year. We handed in a manual that was updated with all of the tools for service learning processes, edited because of the 20 years of CLAYSS. All this free of charge, and it is possible because of the donations from international cooperations, international bodies, and from many small donors. So let me insist that anyone that can cooperate, even if it's a minimum amount, through our CLAYSS website, you have a donate online button. You can do it one time or monthly, and this can help us to accompany the projects of schools and organizations that we accompany with different programs, like the promotion of arts, ecology, accompanying, you know what we do, schools from all of the region, and supporting this seminar. Amongst other things, it is a free of charge seminar, quality seminar, handling materials. Well, this is what I did. I was asking you for your cooperation, and now we will hear the first presentation. Mateo will help us out. Let me introduce Vannina Trentin. She is a professor of education sciences for higher education, and she has a degree from the University in Buenos Aires in philosophy. She works at the UNESCO office, IIPE, for Latin America and the Caribbean, and she has the chair of philosophy and arts in the University of Buenos Aires, working with initial teachers training, incorporating new technologies, and train the trainers for professional educators. She has published many books and publications, among others, on these topics. Vannina, you have 15 minutes. You let us know if you need anything. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure for me to be here today with all of you. It is an event that is so important to celebrate, besides the additional celebrations that we find. Let me first of all thank CLAYSS for this invitation, Nieves in particular, Ángeles, Ernesto, Bárbara, with whom I've been in contact for the presentation of this proposal. Felipe, the IIPE is a specialized institute of UNESCO for planning and management for public policies on education. Our main mandate has to do with accompanying the government in the training of officials that are working with these topics. That's why this dialogue is so important with institutions and people that enable us to have this possibility of reimagining the future for education. The 2030 Agenda by the UN, the SDGs, of course, and in particular, this document that I'm here to discuss today are an essential framework to think of policies, actions, and to find basically anchoring points. When we were talking with Enrique about this presentation, he said, you can come up with a theoretical framework. And I said, let me see if I can do that. But the purpose for this dialogue, I hope we can build, has to do with establishing some support points that are not just about any support point. And it has to do, from my point of view, with an inflection point that in relation to what general organizations consider in relation to diagnosis, issues, and needs around education. This document is a document that involved a lot of work. We had more than 50 countries participating and involved. These involved consultation processes by means of surveys, meetings, discussions, analysis, different means, with the participation of more than 1 million people. This is an effort that I want to highlight as a support point, because as from the origin, the International Commission that was appointed to produce this document was very clear that this document was to be representative of many voices. That is to say, this is not the product of only 4 or 5 enlightened people that discuss and talk about these topics. They might have many interesting things to say, of course, but nevertheless, the will here was for this document to express the voices of many people. That is, many people occupying spaces in public policies, occupying spaces in social organizations. There are persons from the civil society, there are teachers, professors, and students. That is to say, that there is the willingness of a plurality that I think it's important to highlight. In the middle, the document starts being imagined in 2019. Let me move on the slide. 2019, where this specific international committee is appointed to think about the future of education. And what happened in the middle? The pandemic happened. And this was, of course, also a point that made us all reorganize the group of priorities for the task force, but also for the leaders, those leading these decisions. I believe, and I don't like to say that these crises are opportunities. I think that's not nice, but it happened in the best of times. This document happened in the best of times. Luckily, this did not go unnoticed. It would have been impossible for this to go unnoticed. 1,600 million people left outside the education system, classes suspended, not only presential classes, but virtual classes as well. That was one of the main strategies to continue to be connected. This was the slogan in Argentina. And this pandemic was discussed. This was mentioned. And all of the criticisms of schools and education systems we knew from before. Thank you. What the pandemic did for us was to awaken us. We could not notice all this. And let me say that I'm surprised and saddened by how much we were in a hurry to go back to what we had. I think that we still deserve to continue reflecting about the effect of this critical, deep situation that we experience as a humanity in all of its aspects, and in particular in relation to the education environment. We understand that the education institutions were under pressure for the need for having the children back, the children going to school, the families going back to work, but there is something about the social responsibility that is to educate that makes us to see to these demands, but also to do that as from a critical perspective, coming to a pause and thinking that there are things that are not to continue happening in the institutions. This document, Reimagining the Futures of Education, a Social Contract, this is another concept that's very important. The idea of social contract, you know, it goes back to the origins of the states where institutions effectively had an essential role in the creation of this horizon, of something that implies a world where to live, a set of coordinates to organize the world where we're living. It's not just about any world, let me say again. Today, UNESCO is saying we need to rethink a social contract is pretty strong, right? It is to say, in a way, hey guys, we can no longer continue like this. This is not the way. And in imagining a new social contract, the document specifically goes back to the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. In this inflection point, it establishes a set of principles that are very explicit. And that, once again, I believe is distinctive in relation to other documents and reports, and that many times in trying to include everyone, they talk about general aspects, and nobody could disagree with these general aspects, saying education is for everybody. Of course, it's something that's so generic that who could say no? Maybe somebody still sustains this, but in the voice of a general organization, nobody could say this is possible. But the document, Reimagining the Futures of Education, does not only consider general aspects, but it considers very specific principles for an ethical order, political order, economic, ideological, social, cultural orders that set up the paths where to go to. In this of considering this set of principles that I would like to very briefly point out, there's something that is a framework, and it has to do with the idea of rebuilding relationships. This is essential. Here we're not talking about knowledge only. We're not talking about accumulating knowledge. We're talking about relationships first, the ties amongst which the people with the planet from a very committed perspective in relation to sustainability, the sustainability of our life in this planet and the planet itself and the whole of life, because it speaks about all of the living beings. not only the persons. It's impossible to sustain the life of men and women without the life of all of the living beings. Our life depends on that. And rebuilding our relationship with technology, there is a point there that has to do with the criticism towards the technological divides or gaps. In particular, in education, we need to think why we still have this divide, if it has to do with the technologies or its uses. This will be debated at another space. But it also talks about how it says the path is education, but not just about any education. It is this, but not any thing. It is a transformed education. And let me here quote part of the document says, even when the path is through education, it's not just about any education, it's an education that needs to be transformed itself, because in fact many of the problems we have now come from the problem we are educating. That's a strong criticism. That is to say, we are the solution, but we're also the problem nowadays. And well, I believe that this shows the critical perspective and the horizon. In order to talk about the principles, I just thought of something that took place in Buenos Aires in 2019 from an Argentine artist, Leandro Ehrlich, entitled Liminal. Liminal resorts to the idea of a border, of a space of transition. And in this piece of work that's called the classroom, it is a construct, it's an immersive work that is built with the proposal of the artist, but with the participation of people attending to it. It is incomplete until it's not inhabited by the people attending to it. And what caught my attention in particular was a fragment from an Argentine pedagogist that many of you may know about the impact from this work. You would say that this is the scene from our childhood or the interior, the classroom where we spend a lot of time of our life and where we decided perhaps part of our destiny. Joys and humiliation make us describe and discover the world beyond our noses. But when you sit on the structures that allow you to be part of the common scene, just looking at this makes you shake your laziness as an adult. We are no longer outside attending an image we know, but inside it as ghosts from our own infancy. The image we know is what we know, what's traditional, what's enrooted. It is from where we have to support ourselves to make progress. I don't want to be dramatic, we are saying we're at the edge, we're at the abyss, but that's where we are, in a transition space towards something else. And it's not from any place or towards any place. It is from where what we have, not matters that are fantastic or fantasy. It's what we know and knowing what we know. Towards what? Well, we'll see. This type of dichotomy, I'm always against dichotomies, but it was good for me in this case to reinforce the idea, and I'm going to use it as a didactical resource, that is to say, the opposition of dichotomical pairs, in order to point out how, through the whole document, perhaps without considering this section in particular, but as a result researcher that I am, we always look for recurrences, saturation, that is to say, what is it that is coming up all of the time and is specific of what we want to understand and interpret. I was surprised very pleasantly to find a lot of saturation and recurrence in relation to a set of principles that are in opposition to others, in total opposition. These other principles are opposed to, are not explicit. It's not said we are opposed to this world, but I believe that it's pretty obvious to all of us that this hidden curricula, what we don't say is also a message many times, and always supporting ourselves in what we want to express. So this set of principles that can map from the document, let me mention a few. The education is a right. That is a word that's written in millions of pages and millions of documents. But saying this once again implies a political commitment. The idea of right is in total opposition to that of privilege. Education is not a prerogative by some that will access to it because of some conditions. There is a state, there is government, persons, institutions that have the responsibility to guarantee. Education is also a common good. This is against mercantilization, thinking that education is something you buy and sell and it's in the market. And also, in the case very specific notion of equality, the radical equality with men and women that Rancière mentions, that is totally different to that of merit, something that circulates very much in a lot of these speeches and says that person can access something only if they make an effort. That's only the effort without considering that there are many conditions that make those efforts not to be able many times. Another matter has to do with diversity. This is a word that is very much expressed, but it goes against homogenization, that is to say, you confuse what's common with what's homogeneous. What's common is what unites us, what's homogeneous dilutes us. So we need to consider this in restoring relationships. The idea of inclusion that is in total opposition to the idea of equal opportunities. It's not enough, we know, to give an opportunity, but we need to work strongly and systematically so that the children, the young people, adolescents, and adults' path can be deep in their education. Let me now conclude and stop, and we will continue with the conversation later. The idea of collaboration as against the idea of competition, interdependence against individualism, integrality against fragmentation, care, reciprocity, and transformation against the idea that's extractivist, the notion of exchange and consumption. I believe that if we join all of the principles from the first column and all of those from the second column, we have two conceptions of the world, two concepts of the world that are totally in opposition. And in relation to two different concepts of the world that also have a bias and specific features. The first includes the second, but the second excludes the first. In this way, we need to be pretty categorical. There is not one way to include or think of one occasion for all of us if we support ourselves in the principles of the second column. And the last part, I swear, this is the last thing. You only have one more minute. Okay. This document invites us to reflect around the need of rethinking the curricula, and it presents a set of pedagogies amongst which we have that deserve recognition to many years of construction of this perspective of service learning that's a lot more than strategy. It is a way of inhabiting the world, and it invites us to think of a curricula where SDGs could be a principle for this curricula. And here we have a challenge that school does not teach content. The school teaches a set of knowledge that allows us to interpret and transform the world, to inhabit the world in a full manner and to transform it. And this is cross-cutting to all pedagogies that the document proposes. The idea of the construction of a problem, the idea that is different than choosing content from the program. The issue, the problem is a lot more complex. I propose only one, the problems of peace and war, the use of natural resources, health, care, that have their correlation with the SDGs. And that's why we say the SDGs could be a framework to think of the curricula. Let me now very quickly go to the last slide where we see the full picture. And here we see what makes this reflection possible of the people in the scene. It's a construction that the artist presents to live an experience. And let me wrap up with this question. And it's, I hope we can respond. What are the conditions we need to live experiences that form us and transform us? There are conditions that are materials, but there are some symbolic conditions as well. There are conditions that have to do with doing, with being. It has to do with reimagining the future of education, looking for alliances, being with others. And, well, in a way, being truthful to these principles implies thinking and being original in the way we provide responses to these ways of inhabiting and constructing these experiences in educational institutions and beyond those that would allow us to create this future. Thank you very much.
Genial.
Great.
Gracias,
Thank you so much, Vannina, for respecting the time assigned. Great everything you said in this time you have. Now, our next panel member, Jimi Caldea. We have Claudia here also helping out with interpretation. She is specialist of service learning at La Salle, Manila, Philippines. He has been supervising courses on service learning in the business school, at the economy, in law schools. He is head of service learning program of La Salle University and coordinator of the regional Uniservitate hub in Asia. He has a doctorate in Manila University. He has worked for more than 20 years as a professor in different positions, a specialist in serving learning, coordinator of community participation, in charge of national programs for service learning. He has published many written work on these topics. Jimi, are you ready?
Thank you very much,
all right.
Enrique. Foremost, my gratitude to CLAYSS for the chance to share our service learning experience relative to our effort in addressing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So my presentation is basically born out of the very relevant questions that most higher educational institutions are being asked by accrediting agencies or ranking agencies concerning their share in addressing the UN SDGs challenges.
Espera que le pasamos, Clau, ¿te pasan aquel, querés?
Okay. Bueno, primero quiero agradecer a CLAYSS por esta oportunidad de compartir con todos ustedes nuestra experiencia en este esfuerzo de aprendizaje y servicio y ver cómo respondemos a esa demanda de abordar los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible de Naciones Unidas. Entonces, mi presentación básicamente surge de una pregunta muy relevante que nos hacen a las instituciones de educación superior, básicamente las agencias de acreditación, con respecto a nuestra parte de responsabilidad en cuanto a cómo abordamos los desafíos de los ODS de Naciones Unidas.
As an academic institution, how much do we contribute to responding to the challenges identified by the UN SDGs? And so this study explored the influence of service learning in addressing the sustainable development goals among our students.
Entonces, como institución académica, ¿cuánto contribuimos a responder a los desafíos identificados por los ODS de Naciones Unidas? Entonces, este estudio exploró la influencia del aprendizaje-servicio para el abordaje de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible entre nuestros estudiantes.
Well, it's a given fact that our students' service learning projects respond to the UN SDGs challenges. But what happened to these students after taking the course with service learning component, or even after graduating from college when they become professionals? Do they also understand the need to take action in addressing the UN SDG challenges further?
Bueno, es un hecho que los proyectos de aprendizaje-servicio de nuestros estudiantes responden a los desafíos de los ODS de Naciones Unidas. Pero ¿qué pasaba con esos estudiantes después de tomar ese curso con un componente de aprendizaje-servicio o incluso después de graduarse de la universidad, cuando se vuelven profesionales? ¿Entienden la necesidad de actuar y abordar los desafíos de los ODS más allá de sus estudios?
Now, quoting Furco and Billig, they say, and I quote, "The education system must prioritize teaching values connected to sustainable development via service learning," end of quote. Accordingly, this has become the context of this study. We wanted to know the influence of service learning among our students relative to their SDGs learnings and plans of action to further address the UN SDGs challenges.
Entonces, citando a Furco y a Billig, ellos dicen, y los cito, que el sistema educativo debe priorizar enseñar valores conectados con el desarrollo sostenible a través del aprendizaje-servicio. Entonces, este se convirtió el contexto para este estudio. Nosotros queríamos conocer la influencia del aprendizaje-servicio entre nuestros estudiantes, por un lado con respecto a sus aprendizajes en torno de los ODS y sus planes de acción para seguir abordando esos desafíos de los ODS de Naciones Unidas.
Various related literature indicated that service learning has been acknowledged as an effective strategy for addressing the challenges. As you may see on the screen, this is just to show everyone some of the literature suggesting that service learning can indeed help in addressing the challenges.
Bueno, hay diversa bibliografía relacionada que indicaba que el aprendizaje-servicio fue reconocido como una estrategia efectiva para abordar esos desafíos. Y como pueden ver en pantalla, esto es para mostrarles simplemente algunas de las citas bibliográficas que sugieren que el aprendizaje-servicio de hecho puede ayudar a abordar los desafíos de los ODS.
However, we ask, how does our institutional service learning impact students' long-term commitment to addressing the SDGs? Accordingly, we specifically ask our students to answer questions regarding their service learning experience. What are their most critical learnings and plans of action they wish to undertake as a student and as a professional in the future?
Sin embargo, nos preguntamos, ¿no? Entonces, ¿de qué manera nuestro aprendizaje-servicio institucional tiene un impacto en el compromiso de los estudiantes a largo plazo para trabajar en los ODS? Entonces les pedimos específicamente a nuestros estudiantes que respondieran la pregunta relacionada con su experiencia de aprendizaje-servicio, que era: ¿cuáles son los aprendizajes y los planes de acción más críticos que desean llevar adelante como estudiantes y también como profesionales en el futuro?
Now, to give you a brief background of the course design, the course has a weekly 3-hour lecture, including a face-to-face activity with the partner community. It starts with an orientation of their partner community's profile and needs, where our students are also being immersed with people of the community for them to have a real-life experience of the living condition of the people, and for them to have a very good basis for their service learning plans.
Entonces, para darles una breve idea del diseño del curso, el curso tiene una clase semanal de 3 horas, que incluye una actividad presencial con la comunidad socia. Empieza con la orientación del perfil y las necesidades de esa comunidad socia, donde los estudiantes también están inmersos con las personas de la comunidad para que tengan una experiencia de la vida real, de las condiciones de vida de esas personas y para que tengan una muy buena base para sus planes de aprendizaje-servicio.
Next is the ideation of service learning projects, making sure that their service learning projects, number 1, directly responds to the identified needs. Number 2, that their projects relate to their academic course objectives. And that number 3, those projects respond to the UN SDGs challenges. Those are the 3 things that we consider.
Entonces, después viene lo que es la ideación de los proyectos de aprendizaje-servicio. Asegurarse de que esos proyectos de aprendizaje-servicio, primero, respondan directamente a las necesidades identificadas. Segundo, que sus proyectos se relacionen con los objetivos académicos del curso. Y tercero, que esos proyectos respondan a los desafíos de los ODS. Esas son las 3 cosas que consideramos.
And then they start their preparation with several coordination activities, recalibration of plans if needed, up to the implementation. And finally, reflection session and evaluation happen. So the course lasted for 14 weeks.
Entonces después empiezan las preparaciones con varias actividades de coordinación, la recalibración de los planes hasta llegar a la implementación. Y finalmente se produce la sesión de reflexión y evaluación. El curso duró 14 semanas.
So the study considered undergraduate students from 10 different sections with 40 students in each section, taking corporate social responsibility and governance course under the College of Business. So data were analyzed thematically, and we did various validations. The final themes were presented to the concerned faculty members and to the team of service learning specialists for further discussions.
Entonces, el estudio consideró estudiantes de grado de 10 secciones diferentes, con 40 estudiantes en cada sección, que tomaban el curso de Responsabilidad Social Corporativa y Gobernanza en la Facultad de Negocios. Se analizaron los datos temáticamente, hicimos varias validaciones y los temas finales se presentaron a los docentes involucrados y al equipo de especialistas de aprendizaje-servicio para que lo discutieran aún más.
So accordingly, the study revealed 9 themes. So 5 themes are related to students' critical learnings of the SDGs, and 4 themes related to students' plans of actions.
Entonces, el estudio reveló 9 temas, 5 temas relacionados con los aprendizajes críticos de los estudiantes sobre los ODS y 4 temas relacionados con los planes de acción de los estudiantes.
On the 5 themes for students' critical learnings of the SDGs, the study revealed that students, number 1, have an improved understanding of the SDGs. A student says, and I quote, he said, "I used to believe that the SDGs were merely a collection of abstract goals, too large for individuals to make an impact. Nevertheless, thanks to our class, I've witnessed how we can work toward these goals practically while making a meaningful difference in our country, in our community." End of quote.
Entonces, de los 5 temas para aprendizajes críticos de los estudiantes con respecto a los ODS, el estudio reveló que los estudiantes, por un lado, tienen un mejor entendimiento de los ODS. Y hay una cita de un estudiante que dice: solía creer que los ODS no eran más que un montón de objetivos abstractos demasiado grandes para que un individuo pudiera influir en ellos. Sin embargo, gracias a nuestro trabajo de aprendizaje y servicio, he comprobado cómo podemos trabajar para alcanzar estos objetivos de forma práctica y a su vez cambiar las cosas en nuestra comunidad.
Number 2, the study revealed students have a better comprehension of complex social issues. A student says, "Our course has taught me that social concerns are more than intellectual notions. They are problems affecting real people. Working with our partner organization has allowed me to witness the human effect of these challenges and the need to take action to solve them."
El estudio también reveló entonces que los estudiantes comprenden mejor los problemas sociales complejos. Hay otra cita de un estudiante que dice: nuestro curso me ha enseñado que las preocupaciones sociales son algo más que nociones intelectuales, son problemas que afectan a las personas reales. Trabajar con nuestra organización aliada me ha permitido ser testigo del efecto humano de estos desafíos y de la necesidad de actuar para resolverlos.
Number 3, the study revealed students expressed the need to be more socially available. A student says, "Service learning has taught me that it is my obligation as a citizen to give to my community. Working on a project has taught me that I can make a difference and that my actions count. I must act to make a difference."
El otro tema que reveló el estudio es que los estudiantes expresaron la necesidad de estar más disponibles socialmente. Otro estudiante dice: el aprendizaje y servicio me ha enseñado que mi obligación como ciudadana es contribuir a mi comunidad. Trabajar en nuestro proyecto me ha enseñado que puedo cambiar las cosas y que mis acciones cuentan. Debo hacer algo para cambiar las cosas.
Number 4, the study revealed that students expressed the need to enhance practical skills. A student says, "Our class has assisted me in developing practical abilities that I may apply to further projects, to apply future projects and careers. I must continue to develop these practical skills to contribute enough to the community."
El número 4, el estudio reveló que los estudiantes tienen una mayor determinación para actuar. La anterior, que la necesidad de mejorar las habilidades prácticas, Dice el estudiante: la materia me ha ayudado a desarrollar habilidades prácticas que podría aplicar en futuros proyectos y a mi profesión. Debo seguir desarrollándolas para contribuir de forma significativa a la comunidad.
Number 5, students have an increased determination to take action. They say, "I've realized that I have the power to contribute to my community. Our project has taught me a feeling of accountability and a drive to take action."
Y el número 5, el estudio reveló que los estudiantes tienen una mayor determinación para actuar. Dice un estudiante: me he dado cuenta de que tengo el poder de contribuir a mi comunidad. Nuestro proyecto me ha inculcado un sentimiento de responsabilidad y la iniciativa para actuar.
Now, on the 4 themes related to students' plans of actions after taking SL, so the study revealed that students express, number 1, to have continuous learning and reflection activities with their peers. A student says, "Our service learning was only the starting point. I want to continue studying and speaking about the SDGs with my classmates to make a difference. Keeping connected and involved is essential."
En cuanto a los 4 temas sobre los planes de acción de los estudiantes después del curso de aprendizaje y servicio, el estudio reveló que los estudiantes expresaron que tenían un aprendizaje constante y actividades de reflexión con sus compañeros. Dice: nuestro trabajo de aprendizaje y servicio fue solo el punto de partida. Quiero seguir estudiando y debatiendo sobre los ODS con mis compañeros para cambiar las cosas. Es esencial mantenerse en contacto y participar.
Also, the students expressed to take advantage of any chances to participate in ongoing efforts. They say, "I want to keep making a difference, and I know there are continuing SDG-related projects in which I can participate. I'm looking forward in seeing where my path leads me next."
El estudio también reveló que los estudiantes pueden aprovechar esas oportunidades de participar en esfuerzos en curso Dice un estudiante, quiero seguir cambiando las cosas y sé que hay proyectos continuos relacionados con los ODS en los que puedo participar. Quiero ver hacia dónde me lleva el camino.
Number 3, students want to incorporate SDGs in their business philosophy and professional practices. They say, I learned businesses must consider their influence on society. As a future company leader, I want to ensure that the SDGs are included in our decision-making and processes so that we may be a force for good in the world.
Los estudiantes también quieren incorporar los ODS en su filosofía empresarial y prácticas profesionales. Dice un estudiante, aprendí que las empresas deben considerar su influencia en la sociedad. Como futuro líder de una empresa, quiero asegurarme de que los ODS se incluyan en nuestras decisiones y procesos para que podamos ser una fuerza del bien en el mundo.
And lastly, they express to continue to advocate and take the lead. They say, I want to keep pushing for the SDGs and driving innovative initiatives. I believe we are all accountable for making the future more sustainable.
También los estudiantes expresaron su deseo de continuar promoviendo y tomando la iniciativa. Dicen, quiero seguir impulsando los ODS y las iniciativas innovadoras. Creo que todos somos responsables de lograr un futuro más sostenible.
And so with these 9 themes, students' service learning experiences highlight the following influences. Number 1, service learning effectively engages students in addressing the SDGs challenges. Number 2, students gain more insight into complex SDG-related problems. Thus, it develops empathy within them. Students expressing continued interest in SDGs, they want more collaboration and actionable change with their peers. Many intend to integrate SDG principles into their future business endeavors after their graduation. And lastly, students' commitment extends to advocacy, leadership, and inspiring others for a sustainable future.
Entonces, con estos 9 temas, las experiencias de aprendizaje y servicio de los estudiantes resaltan todas estas influencias que van viendo en pantalla. El aprendizaje y servicio compromete a los estudiantes con los ODS al conectarlos con los problemas del mundo real. Los estudiantes comprenden los problemas de los ODS y generan empatía gracias a la interacción con sus compañeros. El efecto perdura. Los estudiantes mantienen el interés, buscan la colaboración de sus compañeros y promueven el cambio. Muchos tienen la intención de integrar los principios de los ODS en sus futuros emprendimientos empresariales y este compromiso de los estudiantes se extiende a todo lo que es trabajo de incidencia, liderazgo e inspirar a otros para un futuro sostenible.
So with this influence, the study established that students have expressed a deep understanding of the SDGs and they have expressed commitment to carry out different action plans as students and even when they become professionals and business leaders.
Entonces, con estas influencias, el estudio estableció que, por un lado, los estudiantes expresaron que entendían profundamente los ODS y la necesidad de abordar esos desafíos, y también expresaron su compromiso para llevar adelante diferentes planes de acción, como estudiantes e incluso cuando se conviertan en profesionales y líderes de negocios.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Jimi. Gracias
Thank you,
también
Jimmy.
por
Thank you
ajustarte a los
for
tiempos.
sticking to
Antes de
the
dar la
time
palabra a
allowed
Manuel, les pido que
before
si tienen
passing on the
preguntas
word
que quieran
to
hacerle
Manuel. If you
a
have
los panelistas o
questions
discusiones,
for
agarren
panel
las
members
hojitas que tienen en la
or
carpeta,
comments, please write
escríbanlas y
them
hay gente del
down
equipo de CLAYSS
in
que
the
después puede ir
pages you
levantando
have
los papelitos.
in the
Así que si ya tienen
folders.
alguna
We
pregunta,
have
vayan
CLAYSS
escribiéndola. Al
people
final de la
to
presentación de
can
Manuel
pick
vamos
them
a
up at
recoger
the
algunas
end of
preguntas.
Manuel's
Aprovecho también
presentation.
para los que
Let
llegaron hoy
me,
y por ahí no vinieron
for
ayer,
tell you, for
contarles que en la
those that
carpeta van a
went here
encontrar
yesterday at the
una
folder,
dinámica de trabajo
you
que
will
queremos hacer
find
en
the work
función
dynamic we
de los
want to
ODS.
carry out in
Justamente
relation to
esta mesa es
SDGs.
como el plato
This
fuerte del tema para
table
nosotros, pero
is
también
about
lo
this
será esta
topic
tarde las sesiones
in
simultáneas.
particular, and we'll
Y
cover
para
it
los que no
in
estuvieron
the
ayer, Manuel
simultaneous
cuento, van a
sessions
encontrar
in the
información
afternoon.
ampliada de los
You'll also
ODS en
find
las columnas que tienen atrás del
information
auditorio.
about SDGs
Bueno,
at the columns at the end of the auditorium.
entonces le voy a dar
All
acá la
right,
palabra a
so
mi
now
amigo Manuel
we're going to
Caire,
hear
jefe
from
de
Manuel
formación para el
Caire,
compromiso
Head of
público de la
Education for
Pontificia
Public
Universidad
Commitment
Católica de
from
Chile,
the Chilean
socio fundador y
Catholic
actual presidente de la Red
University,
Nacional de
founder and
Aprendizaje y Servicios de
president
este país,
of Service Learning Network of Chile, member of Ridas Magazine, head of the Regional Hub of Latin America and the Caribbean for Servitate program. He has worked in different conferences and has written about projects related to service learning. He is a social worker from the Chilean University. He has a master's degree from the Valparaiso University, and he works with the methodology serious play. He also plays soccer, as I do. All right, so we hear you. All right. I'm here representing the Catholic University of Chile with a chapter, if you allow me to tell you about this book, to reinforce the contribution different authors have in these publications. The question you're seeing on the screen is not answered, and we know why. But let me tell you that everything related to service learning of the Catholic University is in page 154, chapter about innovation and coherence. There you'll see how we do things, how the program is born 19 years ago, that we have it institutionalized in the Catholic University. So let me tell you that I'm not here to talk about this pedagogy or the SDGs. And let me apologize, CLAYSS as a team. I am the only one that did not send the presentation earlier. You were not the only one. All right, let me tell you why. Because I believe that we know pretty much about service learning and its benefits, and we have heard other presentations and adhere to them in relation to their results and contextual framework. But I'm here today to talk about her. I want to talk about Carmen. She's a Chilean woman born in 1949, a year that was relevant to Chile because it was the year where the law is passed for allowing feminine votes for presidential elections and for parliamentary elections. We were in the middle of the industrialization of our country, and slowly individual consumption of human beings in Chile at the time we were growing steadily. If you don't know of Chile, you never know. It is this strip, long strip. It's the longest country in the world, more than 4,200 kilometers long as a territory. And she was born, grew up, and lived in this region, the metropolitan region, at the Great Santiago area, where a lot of people live around the capital of the city in the center of our country. And Carmen lived there. And please hear the story of Carmen and how she co-lived with these objectives that are called Sustainable Development Goals, but they were not called that way the past century. She was born in a precarious home, far away from the center of the city, where most probably, like with many other cities in the world, distances are huge. And it was not only a precarious home, but her surroundings for her home and her family was pretty much in needs in the suburbs of the city, as many others live. Besides this, when she was a kid, she suffered from hypoacusia. She lost her hearing, and it's difficult for her to hear. She had to drop out of school in secondary education, at secondary school. This meant losing for her the possibility of continuing her education. It was 6 brothers and sisters. Women worked at the time. She had to work as a woman. as a young woman. It was a precarious job, very low salary, and she was sewing in this sinker machine long hours every day since she was very young. She had long days, as I said, with low wages, very low. And on top of that, the context in 1973, the military dictatorship starts, and she was with this way of life, and there was, on top of that, the loss of many civil rights, where 50 years after that, and she was young, close at home, having to be at home at a certain time of the day because the military were out in the streets. Of course, she gets married, she has a son afterwards, and she lives under the poverty line. It was a difficult context in our country. Many families with very low resources. Carmen had to go out for work whenever she could. With transformation means that were not enough. She had to wait long times for the bus, and after that, she had to be in the bus for an hour 30 or 2 hours in the morning and back in the afternoon. And that meant not only for her, but for the whole family to having to reconfigure the way they lived. Carmen got sick with the passing of time, problems in her bones, stomach, some mental health issues as well. And Carmen suffered from breast cancer, and she died when she was 73. Why am I telling you about Carmen? Because many times the life of a person is the life of many other persons that are living in the same historical situations of inequality and abandonment by the state, by the communities, by the family even. So how is Carmen's life related to today, and how it could have been better, perhaps with medical attention, providing quality medical care, professionals that could have shown her the way in relation to her routine, her medication, accompanying the family. Would have been better if the city would have been friendlier and would have allowed her to have a job closer to home, not to move that much. And the home itself could have been better. Carmen told me that her roof was blown away as it was precarious and rainfall was coming in from the roof. This situation could have been different, and I consider all this vis-a-vis the 17 SDGs, 69 goals. I don't think that we know 10 out of these goals, and these 17 goals, nobody can be against. Of course, nobody could be against finishing poverty, finishing hunger in the years 2000. There were other objectives, the millennial objectives, and one of the goals was to reduce poverty. Reducing poverty is immoral. We should work to reduce it the way it's written today. It was very convenient just to reduce it. And how do the SDGs relate to what we are doing? There are several goals. One of the challenges is for this room to collaborate with understanding and the way to put them into practice. The persons here probably have different levels in development of active pedagogies that put us here today. And let me wrap up with this. I will try to be as brief as I can to allow for questions. But I believe if there's something that distinguishes the persons here in this room, has to do with 4 ideas that I bring here. First, science. We need more science, better science. We need innovation. At different scales, we need action power, transformating power, and also protagonism and commitment from the students. But it's not just about any science. It should be a science that creates knowledge considering the people. It cannot be a desk-type science among four walls. UNESCO document says we need to soften the walls, we need to make them softer. I would say we need to take the walls down. The science needs to face the people, and we are called upon that. It cannot be just about any innovation. It needs to be innovation for those in need. We are not to think innovation is only genius and creativity. Innovation should be a consequence of problems we couldn't solve with the tools we have created already. That's the point of innovation, and it could be not be just any action. And let me stop here. Our educational institutions, schools, universities, live in a very harmless plane in relation to the transformations we need. This should be, I would say, appealing to the infinite capabilities we have for interaction, communication, interrelationship, to leave these comfortable spaces. We're doing many things. I believe we're here, we have traveled, we have left our families to be here, but day in and day out we work with other people. And I think this is still insufficient. We need to encourage these type of practices further. Not just any commitment, it is radical facing of inequality, radical fighting for the rights of people. And as our Victor Jara, our singer in Chile, needs to be a fight and a battle for the right to live in peace, for the right to live in peace in Ukraine, in Ecuador. They are having a bad time, the Jesuits that are having a bad time in Central America, and the right to live in peace for Carmen, my mother, that lost her life this year, and as many other Carmen's probably needed support and didn't get it. This picture is one of her last pictures in a service learning project with agricultural students at a community orchard. Thank you.
Bueno, en ese aplauso fuerte para Manu y el acompañamiento para vos y tu familia, nos dejó así como conmovidos.
We are going to take a breath for Manu and for everybody. So let's make the effort and continue. I will start with Manu. We talked a lot about the SDGs, and this is what we need, right? To give it a name to the people that need our help, that need the help of our universities. More service learning than this, there shouldn't be. So, in Vannina's presentation, right, she talked about the Agenda 2030, the SDGs. We all knew that there was something stronger that we needed. It was too light. And in our CLAYSS team, for example, putting the SDGs as such a central topic in the seminar, it was not easy, because there's a lot of discussion as to whether this is a true call to action or not. Vannina said it. The UNESCO document is a call to action. SDGs are great, but how do we put them into practice? How do we land them on service learning? Well, how do we do it? We do it like Manu expressed it, right? Thinking about the life stories of people. So bringing theory into real life is that, and service learning wants to follow that path and be as concrete as possible. Service learning to address the SDGs challenges, like the students said, as Jimi, clearly expressed in their own quotes and voices when they said, now this is making sense. This is what hundreds of teachers at all levels repeat once and again. It was through service learning when students managed to say, wow, this is what we were taught in the theory. Now we can see it in reality, when girls, adolescents, boys and girls manage to make a connection between the classroom theory and the reality. That is the true transformation, mission of education in the end. And this is no longer the documentaries on Netflix, so on and so forth. These are messages from Pope Francis, for instance, also claiming the same statements, or social leaders, or opinion leaders. So we are giving away these theoretical signals, but they are not enough. And then in our society, when the political class or social classes cannot answer the challenges, we are there to give an answer. So the difficulties that everybody faces will only be solved when we can implement service learning in a better manner. Otherwise, we will keep on seeing broken societies that we will have to put together as a puzzle. I have some questions here. I see that some people from the CLAYSS team were collecting some questions too. So, Jimi, would you like to elaborate more about the service learning program per se, with what communities you implemented it? Tell us more details about the program per se. Tell us about your territory, your land, how it was implemented. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, basically, our service learning program is really patterned after the life of our founder, Saint John Baptist de la Salle. We made sure that for any students to have a service learning projects, they get to be immersed personally to the partner organizations. So we made sure that from the 14 weeks that they are having their course, at least 3 to 6 hours, they get to have the chance to communicate, to talk with the people in the community, for them to get the feel and the condition of the community. From that experience, we could say that their project is really aligned with the needs of the people. So we don't just simply make them create their project on their own or within the classroom. So this is what we do. So our community partners...
Shall I translate? Bueno, nuestro programa de aprendizaje-servicio, de hecho, sigue los principios de nuestro fundador, San Juan Bautista de la Salle. Lo importante es que los estudiantes estén inmersos personalmente con esa organización socia. En esas 14 semanas del curso están 3 a 6 horas en la comunidad, hablando con la comunidad, entendiendo la comunidad, para que su proyecto esté realmente alineado con sus necesidades, que no sea solamente algo que diseñan en la clase, sino que realmente esté de acuerdo a lo que necesita esa comunidad socia.
And also, Manila is the center of the Philippines, and most of the people think that Manila is the center of economics, and people from nearby provinces would converge in the Manila to look for opportunities. But unfortunately, because of the number of people, many also people are displaced, so poverty would also grow. So mostly these are the partner organizations that our service learning tend to address.
Bueno, ustedes no sé si saben, pero Manila está en el centro de Filipinas y también se cree que es el centro económico. Entonces viene mucha gente de las provincias a Manila en busca de oportunidades. Pero en realidad esto hace que, dada la gran cantidad de personas, haya igualmente muchas personas desplazadas. Así que esas son es el público, la comunidad socia con la que trabajamos.
I think that the challenge would come in next. From this experience, we wanted the students' service learning project to really align to the needs of the community. And also it must be related to the course objectives and also responsive to the SDGs. So we made sure that our faculty members understand their role. We don't want to create any biases from the experience of the students. We wanted the faculty members to speak more about the social reality that their students are seeing in the community, because it's very dangerous if you just allow students to create those biases on their own. So after that experience, the faculty members should expound on the experience of the students for them to have really a good service learning projects.
Bueno, nosotros queríamos entonces que los proyectos de aprendizaje y servicio estuvieran verdaderamente alineados con las necesidades de la comunidad y además que, por supuesto, cubrieran objetivos del curso, objetivos curriculares y que trabajaran con los ODS. Pero no queríamos que la experiencia de los estudiantes se viera sesgada por sus subjetividades. Nosotros queremos que después los profesores hablen con los estudiantes sobre esa realidad social, que los estudiantes observaron en la comunidad, que expandan todo ese conocimiento que obtuvieron de la comunidad, pero sin que cada estudiante tenga su sesgo.
Yeah, and then our role as service learning specialists would come in, from the preparation of this experience up to the implementation and even reflection sessions and evaluation of the whole experience of the students. We really made sure that reflection happens. It's the meaning-making activity. So this must happen, and students will not just make a reflective journal. We wanted them to articulate the learnings and the future plans, the influence of the service learning experience in them personally.
Y nosotros, nuestro papel como especialistas del aprendizaje-servicio va desde la preparación, el momento de reflexión, la evaluación, todo el proceso, pero le damos muchísima importancia al proceso de reflexión. No queremos que solo los alumnos después redacten en una revista cómo fue su experiencia, sino que realmente el proceso de reflexión sea muy profundo y que puedan articular todo el aprendizaje de su experiencia.
Bien, gracias.
Thank you. I have two questions to Vannina that I will try to merge, but please take your time. They want to know whether there are any specific experiences to apply SDGs that you may have gathered or that you may have in mind. The other is, what is the role that you assign when teachers reflect upon carrying out projects that turn us into active agents in education? Specific application experiences and the role where the teacher is an agent of change. Thank you for your questions. At IIPE, we have a mandate to accompany governments in training and developing the skills of all officials, nationally and territorially. Luckily so, it is at that level where we commit the more to work on territories closer to people, and the more we work with people closely, the better the results. This is what we achieved in the last few years. This is where we can generate better incidents or better relevance. All of them have a purpose, so that this is not just a theoretical recapping. We do have to do this because this is where we are based on. They have this imprint on them. Whatever is learned can and should be carried out into practice. Since we are an institute that has no say on the definition of policies, at least no directly so, we respect the sovereignty of governments on their educational political lines, but we have no experiences of our own. We do gather experiences from our graduates. They are part of a network of specialists where they work on a platform. We remain in contact with them, and we learn many experiences where the germ was created in relation to experiences about this. And we have knowledge about a variety of experiences. Many of them are related to the urgent needs of countries and territories. They are related to interculturality. They are related to situations that have to do with migrations and urban mobility. This is a characteristic of the time of warfare that we are living through. And there's a number of experiences there are a number of experiences related to this. The most specific I can refer to today is with the team of CLAYSS in the framework of the city of Buenos Aires, where we had a training for supervisors and the steering directors, the team of directors. And a lot of points that have to do with actions were created. This is as far as our mandate reaches. We will try to keep improving as an institute. We will try to systematize these types of experiences. Did you want to say anything? How about the second question? The role of the teacher. What is the role? The teacher is absolutely essential. This is not because this doesn't give a protagonic role to teachers. It gives a protagonic role to communities, and that is fundamental. But even though we think that teaching and learning are separate processes, we conceive of them this way, they are not cause and effect processes. This doesn't make teaching devoid of any responsibility, because it is the driver of change. Even though we may involve students, we cannot put on their shoulders the responsibility for the impact or the result of our actions. This should always be the responsibility of teachers as a whole. I do have results of research in the other environment where I work, university, and we have carried out research in connection to what is it that students recognize as formative. What about the practices and the teaching proposals that transform them and that coincide a lot with the results that were shared here, with what our colleague was saying. And there is one in particular. These are situations that challenge us, that make us feel uncomfortable. And this is the responsibility that we teachers have. We are invited into stopping doing what we know what to do, leaving certainties behind, to be engaged with uncomfortable situations that generate doubts, that do away with the logic of whatever has been instituted or established. This is one of the keys to transformation. I disrupted here in the panel because I wanted to take advantage to give this news. There's lots of things happening on the seminar, and during the week, lots of things happen as well. Yesterday, we received an email, a confirmation email. CLAYSS's office in Uruguay has a very close working relation with UNESCO's Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. Last year, we had UNESCO's representative here talking about the document. And the first comment, the first spontaneous document was that many things that the document had written in connection to the future, they saw it conducted in the experiences of service learning that they've heard on the seminar. And beginning on this, we started some sort of conversation that materialized yesterday. With the support of the Ibero-American Network of Service Learning, we will carry out a joint publication with UNESCO with specific service learning experiences in Latin America related to what the UNESCO document would like to present on service learning and future education. The idea is to have experiences commented by UNESCO specialists and specialists on service learning. Since you are clapping or applauding, well, I will ask you to commit to something. Our commitment, we undertook to select the experiences that will show that what the document of UNESCO says in connection to, softening the walls in the room, generating people that won't be protagonists, but colleagues working on the SDG goals, whatever the theory says, to be able to work in practice. So if you have any experience that you consider has to do with this, you can send it to the info@clayss.org.ar. So you complete this with a QR. You can share your experience, and with all this we will be able to select experiences so that then specialists will comment. Thank you. Well, in CLAYSS we are always willing to ask for funds. We adapt to all sorts of messages. I have two messages to Manuel. Well, Jimi could also take part in this, how to reflect upon SDGs here in service learning projects. We always focusing on results, but when it comes to reflecting, this being so central, there are several questions that have to do with how reflection is developed in service learning processes to relate it to SDGs. Manuel first takes the floor, and maybe Jimi, you can then follow. That's an excellent question. The first thing is to say that in our university we have an implementation model implementing service learning practices. And on that model, reflection is unavoidable. Such as all evidence says, there cannot be a service learning project without reflection. That is key. And it happens to us as teachers who are willing to avoid it. They want to ask a generic question, how is it faring, how things are going. That serves no purpose. International experience shows it has to be challenged, contextualized. It is sometimes written in black and white, but it has to be brought to life in the project. When we think about reflections as one of the themes, the key ones, it's not just to say agricultural students, you will engage in an orchard project, then do research about what this involves. It's understanding, such as her. She was in a palliative care hospital. What about experiences there? What experiences did people have there? Because that is when you engage in dialogue in the context, reflecting upon SDGs. It has to be present from the very beginning. We had the possibility to carry out research, asking students about the value of reflection and proving what the literature had to say. To the extent more students reflect, the better the learning was based on that assignment. When they reflected less, and when they did so towards the end of the project, once they had been in touch with community, they perceived that they learned far less. So for the team, focusing on this evidence put a stamp on the model that put reflection at the limelight and at the very center of things. Our team created a website that was devoted to reflection in service learning. It is in Spanish, but it will be translated into English so that teachers from any part of the world can come to this website and upload reflection strategies to work with critical thinking, teamwork, communicational skills, and whatnot. These are structures that are designed that can be adapted to those teachers that want to go deeper in the reflection. And we are redesigning a game. Rocio, who is here from the team, she's leading this. It's a game with SDGs. It's a table game, interactive one, a tabletop game that will help students come closer to these concepts that have to be carried out through working methodologies.
For our case, we take reflection like a salt, where the food is bland or tasteless without the salt, or stretching for any exercise, where all the efforts will be futile without reflection.
Bueno, nosotros creemos que la reflexión es fundamental, es como la sal que se le pone a una comida que no tiene gusto, es como elongar después de hacer ejercicio. Sin reflexión, la actividad de aprendizaje de servicio no sirve.
When we do ask our students to reflect, there are three central themes we wanted them to focus. It is all directed to their personal development and also academic enhancement and values development. So these are the things that we ask them to relate into. So we make sure that students get to understand the whole experience in relation to their academic learnings. So that's number one. And also we wanted them to articulate their personal resolutions, realizations after the whole activity. So these are not just intellectual reflection, but we wanted them to articulate also some future actions because of the experience. And the core values of our university is faith, service, and communion. We also asked them to relate into this. How does the experience give them a deeper relationship with God? How could they further assist the community who are in need? And also the encounter, we've been hearing the word, the philosophy of encounter from this university. That's one of our concerns also. It's not only for the partners, but also for our students and the faculty members. Giving them the real meaning of encounter, not only for the partner, but also for themselves. That when they help others, they are also helping themselves to become more of a person, become mature person.
Bueno, nosotros en el proceso de reflexión queremos que los estudiantes se centren en tres temas centrales, ¿no? Por un lado, su desarrollo personal, por el otro, su desarrollo académico o su mejora académica y el desarrollo de sus valores. Nosotros queremos que los estudiantes entiendan su experiencia dentro del contexto académico, del contenido curricular. Y para eso también les pedimos que luego articulen sus realizaciones personales, tanto a nivel intelectual como las futuras acciones que van a tomar. Y en cuanto a su experiencia, dada la misión de nuestra universidad, que es una universidad católica, queremos que esto los ayude a tener una conexión mucho más profunda con Dios, que los ayude a desarrollar esa filosofía del encuentro, tanto con la comunidad, entre los estudiantes, con los docentes, y que ayuden a los estudiantes a ser mejor personas a través de esta experiencia.
Bien, bueno. Claro.
That's for sure. I wanted to add to what colleagues have to say. Why is reflection so important? It is clear that that is the turning point. And it is because it is very deeply related to knowledge creation, knowledge construction, the point of convergence between theory and practice. We give sense to categories that we know, and it's the jumping board to create new analytical categories, interpretation and analysis of the world. So interpretation is an absolutely necessary articulation. And if we go back to the previous question, well, this process has to be guided. It is part of teaching. It's not like Nieves said, oh, we had a wonderful time and I will take back home unforgettable moments. No. We are co-protagonists, co-builders of knowledge. We go to the next level. By this tool, we can come to a higher level. We are at the meta-analytical model where we turn our own practices into the subject matter of analysis. We depart from them, we take distance from them. Maybe for some time we get devoid of whatever has to do with the experience to think and build knowledge on them. This is the key as to why this appears so repeatedly as a principle that has to do with transformative experiences. I would say that in the case of SDGs, reflection is not just on what we have to do, but why we are where we are and what we've done to come this far. Life history, life backgrounds, as Manuel shared, are very valid, even when we don't always think that it is always directly related to our subjects or to our assignments. I'd like to thank you, all three participants and the audience, for attentive listening and for joining us. We are determined with the knowledge that service learning as a proposal and as a way to teach is the way to go. Someone said, if SDGs, they are so clear and so good, why are they not met? Well, the challenge is first to reflect upon the real diagnosis, where we are standing, what the solutions are. And, well, this is a tried message, changing education to change the world. It's not the world out there, it's people with names, last names, communities, neighborhoods that surround our institutions. And we believe that service learning can contribute its own share. Thank you. We'll have some announcements before we break. Thank you.